For millions of people, steak is the ultimate indulgence. The sizzle as it hits the grill, the smoky aroma, the promise of juicy tenderness, it's the kind of meal you expect to be pure, unadulterated beef. After all, steak is one of the last foods people assume would be faked. You can imagine a cheap burger being padded with fillers, but a steak? Surely that's sacred. Yet, behind the dim lighting and artfully arranged plates of certain restaurants lies a reality that would horrify any true meat lover. Some of the most well-known steak restaurants aren't serving what they claim. In fact, in a growing number of cases, what's arriving on your plate isn't even 100% beef. It might look like steak, it might even smell like steak, but it's been quietly engineered, injected, or cobbled together from scraps into something masquerading as a premium cut. The trickery starts long before the waiter sets the plate in front of you. Many of these restaurants rely on a practice known in the industry as meat restructuring. Instead of serving you a single, solid cut from a cow, like a ribeye, sirloin, or tenderloin, they take smaller, lower-grade pieces of beef, glue them together with a binding agent, and shape them into something that looks like a legitimate steak. The glue is often transglutaminase, a powder that acts as a kind of culinary adhesive. To the untrained eye, the final product appears seamless. Cooked to medium rare and topped with a dollop of butter, it could pass for the real thing. But once you know the truth, the illusion shatters. You're not getting a steak from a prized cut, you're getting meat scraps that have been fused into a convincing counterfeit. Some establishments go even further. Instead of just piecing together beef, they bulk up the meat with fillers that can include soy protein, modified starches, and flavor-enhancing additives. Why? Because it's cheaper. Selling a real, unaltered cut of quality beef costs more, and for restaurants chasing higher profit margins, every penny saved counts. These fillers can increase the weight of the steak, making it seem larger and more substantial while cutting costs on actual beef content. That means when you think you're eating a hearty, 12-ounce premium steak, part of that weight is actually filler, and you're paying prime prices for it. The deception is often hidden under layers of seasoning and marinades. Heavy spice rubs, flavored butters, and rich sauces aren't just there to make the dish taste better. In some cases, they're used to disguise the fact that the steak has been tampered with. By masking the subtle differences in texture and flavor, restaurants can serve something that passes as premium to the average diner. And if the meat has been frozen, thawed, injected with brine, and cooked quickly, the combination of seasoning and searing can make it almost indistinguishable from the real thing, at least until you know what to look for. Another tactic involves using lower quality cuts from older cattle or even different animals altogether. In some documented cases, cheap imported beef from countries with less rigorous quality standards has been sold as local, premium meat. In more extreme examples, restaurants have been caught blending beef with meat from other species, pork, for example, without telling customers. In the industry, this is known as species adulteration, and while it's illegal in many countries, it still happens. The only real safeguard is rigorous inspection, but not every restaurant faces the same level of scrutiny, especially smaller chains or independent steakhouses. Chain steak restaurants are not immune, and in some cases, they've been among the worst offenders. The pressure to keep prices low while maintaining the illusion of quality can push them toward questionable sourcing practices. Large-scale suppliers often provide pre-portioned, pre-marinated steaks that arrive at restaurants in vacuum-sealed packs. These products might look like perfectly uniform cuts, but uniformity itself can be a red flag. Real steaks vary slightly in shape and marbling. When every steak on a plate looks identical, there's a good chance they've been processed in a factory to achieve that consistency. It's not just the meat content that's concerning, it's also the treatments used to enhance the appearance. Some restaurants use carbon monoxide gas to keep the meat looking red and fresh, even if it's been sitting for days. While this process is technically allowed in some regions, it's highly misleading. The bright, cherry red color makes the steak appear fresher than it really is, tricking customers into thinking they're eating something recently butchered when, in reality, it could be weeks old. The health implications aren't trivial either. Restructured steaks, because they combine multiple pieces of meat, have more internal surfaces where bacteria can hide. In a traditional whole cut, harmful bacteria like E. coli are usually only on the outside, where they're killed during cooking. But in glued-together meat, bacteria can be trapped inside, meaning the steak has to be cooked more thoroughly to be safe. That's bad news for those who prefer their steak rare or medium rare. It might not be safe to eat unless cooked longer, which defeats the point of ordering it that way. Some diners who have worked in the restaurant industry share horror stories about how these products are handled. Frozen steaks arrive in bulk, get defrosted in sinks, soaked in brine to plump them up, then grilled quickly to create sear marks before being finished under a broiler. The presentation is impeccable, but the substance is lacking. And if you've ever had a steak that looked perfect but seemed to have a strangely uniform texture, almost too tender, with no natural grain, you might have been eating one of these fakes. High-end steakhouse chains sometimes avoid the worst of these practices, but even they aren't immune to corner cutting. Some have been accused of passing off USDA select beef as USDA prime, charging premium prices for what is essentially a lower grade. In blind taste tests, trained chefs can spot the difference, but most customers can't, especially after the meat has been aged, marinated, and served with bold flavors. And while not all aging is bad, some restaurants accelerate the process using chemicals that simulate the flavor of dry-aged beef without the time or cost involved. The economic incentive for these deceptions is massive. Real steak, especially from well-raised cattle, is expensive to produce. Between the cost of feed, land, labor, and transport, prices have climbed steadily over the years. Restaurants looking to maintain their profit margins without hiking menu prices have every reason to look for ways to cut corners, and for unscrupulous operators, not 100% meat is the easiest way to do it without most customers noticing. Unfortunately, diners often don't find out they've been duped until an investigative report or whistleblower exposes the practice. Food safety authorities occasionally conduct DNA testing on restaurant meat, and the results can be eye-opening. In some cases, steaks have been found to contain significant amounts of non-beef protein. These revelations usually cause a temporary stir, but after a few weeks, public outrage fades and business continues as usual. For customers who truly care about what they're eating, there are a few telltale signs that something might be off. Perfectly uniform size and shape in every steak served is suspicious. An overly soft, almost spongy texture could indicate injected brine or fillers. Excessive marinade dripping from the meat before it's cooked is another hint that the steak is being disguised. And if the menu price seems too good to be true, say, a massive ribeye for a fraction of what you'd expect, it might be because the restaurant isn't paying for real, high-quality beef in the first place. The deception isn't always about outright fraud, sometimes it's about stretching definitions. A restaurant might advertise Angus steak without clarifying that it's ground, reformed, and glued from multiple sources. Others might claim their steak is aged without saying it was chemically treated rather than naturally matured over weeks. These half-truths are enough to mislead diners while staying just within the boundaries of legality. For steak lovers, the safest bet is to choose restaurants with transparent sourcing policies and a reputation for integrity. True steakhouses that proudly display their cuts, explain their grades, and offer to show you the meat before cooking have little to hide. Independent butchers who also operate restaurants often fall into this category, as do smaller establishments that work directly with farms. The real danger lies in places that keep their sourcing vague, lean heavily on marketing buzzwords, and serve meat that looks eerily identical from plate to plate. At the end of the day, the issue is about more than just getting your money's worth, it's about trust. When you order a steak, you're not just buying food, you're buying into the promise that what's on your plate is exactly what it's claimed to be. When restaurants break the